Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
All right, welcome into Small Business Saturdays. I'm your host, Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. And I love supporting small business owners to create a business that they love. And I do that through empowering proactive small business owners. Those are the folks that I love working with, the ones that are willing to take action. And I just empower them to develop a winning mindset. And we use resources that are going to nurture their essential fundamentals. And so you guys, as small business owners, unlock your full potential. So I'm excited to be back here. I have been on a bit of a hiatus. June was a busy month for us, and into May and into June, lots of things happening. So, excited to be back, and we're going to try to get the Small Business Saturdays podcast rolling here again, and appreciate anybody that's tuned in, or those of you that are checking out the podcast version. Really looking forward to hearing your feedback on what it is that we're talking about here on Small Business Saturdays. So I'm excited for that today. And so let's see where everybody's at here. But today on this episode, I want to discuss how we can rediscover our passion, prioritize our tasks, and protect our well-being. Because we want to combat small business burnout. I've heard that from a lot of people. I know I've experienced it quite a bit myself. And as small business owners, it's definitely a challenge. And so it's something that we want to have the tools and resources to be able to overcome. And I know that to overcome anything, we have to first start by defining it, right? We have to really clearly understand what it is, how it affects us, and really what it shows up as. So let's start there. Let's dive right into this. I want to get in and out for you guys today so you can get back into your Saturday here. What is burnout, right? And it could be a lot of things for a lot of people. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about anybody that's tuned in live here as to what your opinion of this might be. But burnout is a feeling of stress. Maybe it's overwhelming stress, even. It's exhaustion. You're just emotionally drained. You're kind of unable to kind of keep up with the constant demands of your business. And it really results from the long hours that sometimes small business owners are faced with, the stress of managing multiple roles. As a small business owner, you get to wear all the hats, and some of those hats are not always the most exciting for you, right? But yet we still have to do that. Maybe there's financial pressures. You're not quite where you're at. And then a big one here is the high expectations that we set for ourselves. Us small business owners that are willing to take this risk to put ourselves out there to run our own business, right? Those are also typically people that are very willing to reach for the stars, right? To dream big, right? Owning a small business is not for the faint of heart. It is definitely work. It definitely requires us to be a little bit more than just somebody clocking in and out of a day job. Again, nothing wrong with that. But to be a small business owner, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. And so we tend to have very high expectations that we set for ourselves. So, and what ends up happening is then we start taking those expectations of what the results are, and then we focus all of our energy on the results. I'm not getting the results. I'm not there yet. I'm not what I lack, right? That's the focus typically. And that leads to burnout. And so I want to start here. I want to start with just first and foremost, as a small business owner, just take a moment to celebrate, right? Just take a moment to say, you know what? I'm here. I'm doing this. That's valuable. That's worth something. I'm creating something that I love. I'm working to create something that I love. And so let's start there. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Yay. Good for us. I love it. Anybody that, wants to join me in celebration, please do. But so, and here's what happens, right? When we start facing burnout, it can impede our productivity. It will sap our creativity. When we're burnt out, we're just not creative. And the businesses that we have take creativity on a lot of different fronts, right? Either from the designs, from how do I overcome problems, to how do I juggle all of these things, right? That's all creativity that we need. And with burnout, our creativity just gets sucked away from us. And unfortunately, with chronic burnout, it can also lead to serious health issues, right? I know the stress that I carry around, it does not do my body well. And so I have to figure out tools and ways to manage that. But that's all doom and gloom, right? You guys know I'm not a big fan of doom and gloom and and commiserating and whining and complaining, right? I want to understand, okay, what's the solution, right? And here's the great news, that burnout is not a life sentence. We just have to know what to look for, and then we have to have a strategy to deal with it once we spot it, right? Burnout really becomes a signal that something needs to change. Once we start having these feelings, these signs that show up. So I want to hear from you guys, anybody that's tuned in live right now. Share how burnout shows up for you, right? Where have you experienced it? How does it show up? What are the specifics of it? And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to share some signs that I've seen personally in myself, and also through talking to others, and just the feelings and things that I've seen as I watch small business owners navigate this challenge of what burnout means to them. And so the first thing that I've kind of noticed, this is one that really shows up for myself, is just that chronic fatigue, right? Feeling tired almost all the time, even after resting. I just want to sit on the couch. I just want to relax. I can't get motivated, right? And so I just feel like I don't have any energy, that chronic fatigue. Another way that it shows up, and I think this one shows up for a lot of us, and we don't recognize it. We want to, so it's decreased engagement, right? We were feeling a little burnt out, and then we just want to hide. And honestly, hiding is the worst thing that we can do when we're feeling burnout, right? And we'll talk about some strategies to get beyond burnout here. But that decreased engagement, it's that lack of enthusiasm. Maybe it's a loss of interest, and you're not showing up for the people and the groups and the things that you've committed to, right? You're just not feeling it, right? So, and then we've got a comment from Kylene here. She says, burnout shows up for me as feelings of exhaustion and stuck and isolation. Awesome. Yep, there we go, Kylene. We're gonna actually talk about that in just a second. Good job. Jerry says hiding never helps. Yep, absolutely. And I know in the moment, right, that's the comfortable thing to do, right? I just want to deal with this. I'm just going to hide. I don't want anybody else seeing me. I'm going to just kind of go into our cave, right? That's human nature to look for safety. But we're not dealing with a life or death situation here. We're dealing with burnout. We're dealing with, we need the support. We need the interaction. We need the other people around us. So we'll get to that for a second. So Vicky says, going through burnout right now, it makes me question what I'm doing. Should I not be doing vendor shows anymore? The economy is sucking the life out of me. Okay. All right. Good. Vicky, that perfect. This is it. Right. And so first and foremost, I'm proud of you. I'm really super proud of you for showing up, commenting, being here. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to put a little star on your comment. We're going to come back to it here. So thank you so much for sharing that. Those are great questions, and we've got to figure out some ways to answer those that aren't just blinders on situation, looking at the results. One of the things we talked about that kind of causes some of this is that we're just concerned about the end result. We're not understanding the process and the building and going a little bit deeper. So we're going to get some strategies. That's awesome. Thank you, Vicky, so much for sharing that. Okay. So let me get back on my list too. And you guys keep them coming. This is amazing. In fact, you guys have hit some of them on my list, but I want to go a little bit deeper because I had a few more notes to take here. Kylene will be shaking her head drastically on the other side. My wife deals with me. And when I'm feeling some burnout, it typically shows up with increased irritability or some emotional instability. I like to pick on my poor wife sometimes, and I always apologize. I always feel bad, and I'm trying to figure it out, right? But it's the mood swings, it's the frustration, it's the and so that happens. Another one is we just have some cognitive problems, we'll call it, right? It's I can't concentrate. I'm forgetting a lot of things. I have a really difficult time making decision. Sometimes burnout is just decision overwhelm, right? We don't have a good mechanism to make our decisions by, so we struggle with it. We have decreased productivity and performance, right? We're not getting the task done. We're not doing what we say we're going to do. We're not achieving goals that seem manageable, really, at first glance, because burnout's getting in the way. We feel ineffective, right? We're struggling to with the effort, right? We're not producing results. Again, a lot of times all these kind of mix together, right? We're feeling ineffective, and a lot of that ineffectiveness is because we're hiding. You can't do anything when you're hiding. You can't take action when you're hiding. We're detached, easily. Sorry, Jerry says multiple things. Shiny object got me there, but I was going to say detached and isolated, and Jerry says easily distracted. Yep, that definitely is it for me. I can be easily distracted. Here's another one: increased cynicism, or just a lot of negativity. Right? We have that pessimistic outlook, and we begin to be more critical and cynical in the things that we do. And the reality is the fix to a lot of these things is kind of creating a more positive environment. So that pessimistic outlook is going to get us more of that pessimistic outlook. So we'll talk about that in a second. You guys know, hopefully, if you've listened to me long enough, you get to a point where you understand some of the things that I do, right? But I love solutions. So I'm trying to kind of go through a list so we can pinpoint what these things are. But, I immediately want to jump into solution. Vicky says, I can't hear you when I enlarge video. I don't know what that is. Maybe when you enlarge it, Vicky, on Facebook there, if you'll go and hover just over the bottom right side of it, there might be a volume. I think sometimes Facebook, when it enlarges, it mutes it automatically. It's definitely a Facebook thing. If that doesn't work and you want to enlarge the video here, you can also head over to liveosg.com and check out the video over there on YouTube. And YouTube doesn't have those kinds of things, but see if that works. So hopefully that comes through, Vicky. Okay. And then we've definitely covered this one. Thank you, Kylene. liveosg.com. You can see it on the screen right there. So the last one that I had on the list, and I think we've covered this one pretty well, is just that feeling overwhelmed or trapped, feeling like the demands of work or life, right, are too much to handle. We just kind of feel stuck in that situation. And so, as we talked about here, a big part of this is we have to recognize it, right? This is kind of like, it's like we have to look for the danger per se, but we have to recognize it and not get into that fight, flight, fawn, or freeze mode, right? Which is what then gets us to hide. And we have to be looking for these signs, not as a, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of negativity around me. We have to look for these signs to go, oh, yep, there's an opportunity. Oh, yep, I'm feeling a little bit of burnout. There's an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity to do something different. And a lot of times change really happens. We can affect change when we just do something different. Just switch it up, right? Just have a different perspective. Try something new. And so it's kind of the idea of insanity, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's what Einstein defined as insanity, right? So, because the other thing to be aware of here is that some of us might be dealing with chronic burnout, right? And not even knowing it, right? It might be your mode of operation. Right? It might be, there is a lot of negativity. You're always feeling trapped and overwhelmed. You're detached and isolated, and you rarely show up in the things. You don't always hold true to your commitments. You're not performing, and so the results aren't there, right? But yet it's just kind of how we act, right? And that's okay. There's nothing, this is not to say, oh, you're terrible. This is to say, hey, it's an opportunity to go, oh, I can make a change. Oh, I can make a change. I can try something different. So if being negative and cynical all the time isn't working for you, well, let's try to change that, right? And that's what really kind of I notice for me is sometimes I just need that reminder, right? And unfortunately, sometimes the reminder shows up for me as I snap a little bit at my wife or my son, or and I just go, oh, come on, Aaron, let's do better. And guess what? I do better, right? I get better. Okay, there's that sign. Look for that sign, and then how do we do better? So, Kylene, I think, summarizes this really well. She says, just being honest with yourself to recognize something needs to change when you are continually having those feelings, right? Yeah. And it's, see, this is, I'll take that a little bit further, Kylene. Thank you for sharing that. Because it's feedback, right? We think of feedback as me going to, let's say I'm giving feedback to Kylene. Aaron goes up to Kylene and says, Kylene, here's the feedback on the thing you did, right? We reach out to our customers and we ask, how was the thing, right? And that's what we kind of like, oh, that's feedback. Well, no, feedback is even more than that, right? That's the easy feedback because we have that conversation. It's that language back and forth, and we can decipher that. But other times, the real valuable feedback shows up in other ways, right? So if it is external feedback, it might be showing up in the fact that things aren't working. Nobody's coming to the thing or doing the thing or whatever. But it also can show up in internal feedback of just having this continuous kind of feeling that keeps showing up. And when we start recognizing that as feedback, then like Kylene says, it's just being honest with yourself and going, that's okay. Accept it for what it is. And let's figure out a strategy. Let's do something different. So at that, I want to get into the strategies. And again, as you guys, anybody that's listened to me before know that I love coming up with solutions. And so, this is the part I get excited about. I want you to recognize it. I want you to kind of figure out what it is for you, but I don't want to dwell there, right? Like I said, the whole idea here is to not, go, oh, you're so terrible, Aaron, you're doing all these things, you've got burnout. Nope. The idea here is to go, oh, okay, yep, there's some signs that I know that if I develop some strategies for myself here, that I can actually get out of this rut. I can move forward just by accepting it for what it is. If it's not good or bad, we got to stop putting labels on everything, and we just got to go, it is what it is, right? And then we go, okay, now what can I do differently? How can I change that? So are you guys ready to talk about a few strategies for dealing with burnout? And again, those of you that are tuned in live here, share what strategies you use too as we go through this. But number one here, and I've got some banners for those of you that are watching the video version, but the podcast folks, you'll get all the same great information. So first one is pause and organize, right? And this seems maybe a little counterintuitive. I don't know, at least it does for me, where, wait a second, I'm feeling burnout and I should just stop? And I should take time organizing. Yeah, I'm feeling so overwhelmed and I need to get a whole bunch of things done. I don't have time to get organized. I just got to get done. Well, that's where we start getting into that burnout, because that's that overwhelming feeling. So if we actually pause for a moment and go, okay, I've got a bunch of junk on my desk. I need to make sure I understand what's going on here so I don't keep having that feeling like I'm forgetting something, right? I need to get into my to-do list, my task management program, my whatever, and I can't have the notes everywhere and random stuff. I need to get back to being organized, right? Once I can do that, then I can see the big picture. I can realize that, you know what, I can handle this, right? Because I got my arms wrapped around all of it. And so just getting organized, right? If you're faced with a big job and you don't know how to get to the end of it, the first thing to do is just kind of organize, right? And so that leads us into number 2, which is clear the decks, right? And the concept here that clear the decks is virtually just that, right? We got a big project. We can't get our arms around it. Sometimes we just need to go get rid of all the junk, clear the desks, and then, okay, now let's get it back together in an organized fashion. And once we clear the desks, the other thing that happens, right? Because a lot of times the overwhelm comes from we're just carrying too many things around. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. All of these things feel like big, huge priorities. And if I clear the decks, the things that really aren't priorities, they're going to go away, right? Because you're not focused on them. They're just going to, right? We're going to remove those non-essential tasks and clear the schedule. Sometimes it's good to just go, you know what? I normally have my day full of stuff, blah, 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 blah. Today, clear the deck. Nothing on there today. I'm going to get organized. I'm going to get back to doing meaningful work, right? And so that's number 2, is clear the deck. Number 3 is we have to reprioritize, And because I say this all the time, and a lot of times it's because I'm trying to remind myself of it, right? But it also is a good reminder for everybody else. None of us have a time management problem. It's just in the world we live in and the reality we live in, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. So we all have the same amount of time. Yes, we might have more responsibilities and different situations that make some of our days feel like we don't have the same 24 hours as everybody else. But the reality is, every single one of us has the exact same 24 hours in the day. So what we actually have, instead of a time management problem, is we have a priority management problem, right? We've got to actively change our priorities, change our situation, take 100% responsibility for our own story and our own outcomes, and go, okay, what's actually important, right? What can I get rid of? What's actually urgent in this moment that's going to move me forward, and not just urgent for somebody else? Right? How can I reprioritize? And one of the big things with reprioritizing is just learning to say no, right? But when we talk about prioritizing, we've got to have some sort of a mechanism, right? And part of that mechanism starts with understanding what is actually important to you, right? And that's where a lot of us get stuck, is we've dove right into this without clearly defining what's important to us. And so we don't have a mechanism to prioritize by. And so we're just taking on what everybody else throws at us, and they're giving us their priorities. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We are going to be valuable when we help other people. But if we are overwhelmed and burnt out, we're not valuable at all, right? So we have to reprioritize. The next tip here is we need to think about our physical care, right? And I know as we talk about burnout, right, this is mental stress, this is a lot of things, but uh, those two things are very interconnected, right? So the burnout can cause some physical challenges, but then the lack of focusing on my physical well-being can also create some productivity, and then that cycle feeds off of each other. So I need to understand that my mental well-being is linked to my physical well-being. And so we have to make time, right? There's the idea of self-care. And I love that it's getting so much, lots of people are focusing on it these days. I think in just our attention grabbing world that we live in, that, the term self-care gets brought up a lot. And I love that. The reality of self-care is you have to just make time for yourself, right? And whatever that is, right? My wife, Kylene, she does gentle yoga. She's a yoga instructor, and they do chair yoga. They do some hybrid stuff, and then just gentle yoga. Because when you think about yoga, there's so many benefits to that we don't quite understand until we actually do it. It's hard to explain it. But once you start doing it, just that movement in a balanced way is so good for us. And again, it can just start off with like I said, Kylene does chair yoga. In fact, Kylene, if you'd put that up there, if you go to riseshinesmile.com, just go check it out. Like I said, it's really hard to explain the benefits and the value of it. So Kylene actually says, you know what, show up, come to one, no charge, just show up, see how you like it, and see if it's for you. And then she'll talk you through it. Right. And so finding that opportunity to do some self-care, whether that's yoga, whether that's, a meditation, whether that's just getting out and going for a walk, whether that's, whatever it is for you. I like to do a thing called Zentangle, where I just draw a little bit. It's something I learned from a Success Principles friend of mine. But back to the yoga real quick. Those types of activities, you go, I don't have time for that, Aaron. How am I supposed to make time? I will argue that you don't have time not to, because until you can get yourself rebalanced, recentered, and your physical body starting to feel a little bit better, you're never going to be able to catch up on the other things. Right. So you don't have time not to do these things. It's a half hour, right? The riseshinesmile.com is a half hour of your life that you get to just do something for yourself. Just move your body, and that little movement, it's going to add up over time. Kylene's worked with folks that they really struggled with their movement. They had injuries, they had different things that was really challenging for them. and they decided, you know what, I'm going to take control of my physical health. I'm going to do these things. And yoga was part of that movement. And now they're getting out of the chair. They're starting to do, right. So this is Kylene used to do just chair yoga, just gentle yoga. And now she's starting to add some hybrid stuff in there. So, yeah, Vicky says, need self-care for your mental state these days. Absolutely. And whatever that shows up for. But here's the deal though. You have to schedule it, right? You have to make it a priority. We go back to the previous one, reprioritize. We have to make this physical care a priority, right? And I'm quote unquote preaching to the choir here. No, not sorry, wrong term. I'm quote unquote preaching to myself in a lot of these ways, right? I understand that, and I'm starting to recognize that burnout in me, and that I've got to get back to that, getting my physical body right. And so, I'm starting to do some things to try to improve that, right? So, okay, so I think I've hit that pretty well. But again, go to riseshinesmile.com. It just, again, no, it doesn't hurt you at all. Nobody's going to give you the hard sell. If you haven't met Kylene before, you are going to be just blown away by how sweet, caring, generous, and joyful she is. She has changed my life in so many ways. And I'm not just saying that because she's listening in. She knows this to be true. I would not be able to be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for her helping me find that, right, that positivity, that joy, right? I was one of those very cynical, negative people. It just was the way I was raised. And so being able to get beyond that, it takes a very intentional thing. Okay. What do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. I don't have the actual number, doesn't matter. Reroute in your productive passion. What does that mean? Reroute in your productive passion, right? And this is where I was talking about earlier, where I mentioned that we sometimes don't have a mechanism to prioritize by, right? Why is it that you're doing what you do, right? What's the why behind your business? Have you taken some time to actually go through that? Or is that too difficult, right? That's too tough? I just need to make money. Baloney. There's way easier ways to make money. I'm sorry. That's the truth of it. There it is. Go and find a job, right? But there's a reason why you're not doing that, and you're trying to be a small business owner. There's a reason why you're getting away from that. That comes with its own set of challenges, having a job and working for somebody else and building something for somebody else, right? So you have to get into the core of what that reason is, what your productive passion is, why you do what you do. Because once we're in that state, right? Once we're in that state of understanding, this is why I do it, right? This is why I show up. I love the creativity. I love supporting people. I love the interaction with other people. Whatever it is for you, right? I love teaching. I love learning. There's so many different, each and every one of us has a very unique passion. I call it a reason. And the reason I call it a reason, right? Funny. The reason I call it a reason is that ultimately I know that to be successful, our reasons have to be bigger than our excuses. So if we can get deep into what our reason is and understand the how big that is for us, how important it is, right? Then we get into that state of flow, right? In that state of flow, right, we could do that for hours and hours on end without even noticing it. And we're just happy and joyful. It almost feels like we're floating when we're in flow, right? We're just able to kind of really do a lot of things. And when we're in that state, oh my gosh, it's amazing how much we get done. It's amazing how light we feel. We somehow manage to then fit in everything because we're just, oh my gosh, I'm so passionate. I'm so in love with what I'm doing, right? And that's why for me, giving you guys resources to create a business that you love, that fills me up. That makes me super joyful. I could do this for hours and hours on end. I could talk about this stuff forever, right? So that we need to identify what that passion is, what that root is. Kylie, if you take down the banner real quick, that would be great. Because so if this is something that you're interested in and you want some guidance with this, I've discovered that this is one of my superpowers. I've been able to work with people on kind of getting into the root of this. I call it clarifying your reason. So if you'll see it right below my name on the video screen here. But for those of you listening on the podcast version, go to coachosg.com and you can go over there and find the micro consult that's called Clarify Your Reason. right? And actually, there is a banner in there, Kylene, for this too, if you could find that real quick for me. Because if you're listening and you want to, and you're not an OSG member, first and foremost. So MOS members, they get this clarify your reason as part of being part of the Masters of Success. Our success group folks, you get a special discount that's in the Facebook private members group. But if you're not a member of our success group or Masters of Success, I do have a coupon code for everybody else here. It's Unstuck, UNSTUCK. And if you go to Coach OSG and you find that clarify your reason, we can walk through together, and I've got some great tools, and we're going to get down to the core of what your strengths are. And it's just I'm a guide by your side. We're going to work through this at your pace and in your comfort zone, and things are going to show up when they are. And I'm going to be able to sit back and go, okay, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm feeling coming from what you're telling me, kind of thing. So do that, coachosg.com, check that out. So that's that one there. We have to reroute in our productive passion. We really have to understand what our why is. And then we can be prioritizing and doing things like that. All right. So the next one here, and we can delegate. Right? I know I for a fact, because I'm so fortunate to get to work with so many small business owners throughout our success group and everything else that I get to do, even on Two Regular Guys, we don't delegate enough. Right? We want to do everything. We have to do everything because we have to have control. It has to be perfect. I can't afford it. Yada, 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 yada. We don't delegate enough. I'm the same way. I don't delegate enough. So we have to delegate things. And some of you are going, well, Aaron, I'm a one-person show. Who am I going to delegate it to? Figure it out, right? Outsource. Things that aren't your core genius, things that you don't love to do, outsource them. Are you going to make as much profit on that? Nope. But are you going to get your time back and be able to make profit on the things that you do make profit on? Yep. Right. And then you can grow into that. Then you can learn on your own time. Then, so outsourcing in today's world, virtual assistants are, Vicki will talk about that. Virtual assistants are not very expensive, and the return on that investment is so much, right? And so Vicki says, I don't have anyone to delegate to. It's just me. Well, there we go. So outsourcing, finding a virtual assistant, finding services, right? If you're doing all the accounting and you hate it, guess what? There's somebody out there that loves doing accounting. Let them do it. Yes, I know that I can't afford it, yada, yada. Everything in business, if you want to be a successful business owner, you have to stop looking at what things cost, and you have to start looking at things on what the return on investment is. Can I afford it today? Maybe not. Do I need to be saving up to do that and looking for that really quickly so I can delegate as soon as possible? Absolutely. What is that costing me, right? Because when we're doing things that we can delegate, you're now sitting there going, okay, I'm doing this. How much money could you be making if you were focused in on your core genius, right? What would you be making on an hourly basis, right? So maybe your number is $100 an hour. Maybe your number is $200, $300 an hour, right? And so every time you're spending an hour doing something that's not making you that much money, you're actually losing money. But if we're just looking at how much that virtual assistant costs us, looking at how much that service costs us, looking at how much profit I lose by outsourcing it to somebody where I'm only making 30% compared to 50%, right? We lose sight of what's important here, right? If we're burnt out, start looking for ways to delegate as much as you can. And right. And there are people around you. There are people that want to help you, that are sitting there waiting for you to ask for help, right? That can be delegating right there. Just say, you know what, I need help. Okay, cool. What do you need help with? But you have to be willing to engage, right? We can't go hide. We have to be able to, we can't just type into a Facebook group and say, I need help, right? They don't know you. You need to find a community. You need to get engaged with people that really understand, right? This happens in our mastermind programs all the time, the Masters of Success. These people have spent time engaging, getting to know, like, and trust each other. And the relationships that they have, they're willing to do anything for each other, even when it doesn't really make sense financially. I've seen it, right? I've seen people do that. Go, you know what? You need help. I'm here to bail you out. We're in this together, right? And so if you don't have anybody, find some people, right? That this is also possible. So let's see here. So, yep. Kylene says the OSG MOS community has been really powerful for me. Absolutely. So, all right, delegate. Let's the next one here, maintain a healthy work-life balance, right? And this is another thing that gets talked about a lot right now. And I'm so grateful that that's the case, is that we're talking about that. Here's my concern. My concern is that we don't understand what balance really is, right? And what that means, that healthy work-life balance. I think a lot of people think that the healthy work-life balance is I just always have to like, oh, my business is 8 hours a day, I sleep 8 hours a day, and I do everything else in the other 8 hours a day, and then I'm balanced. Nope. Balance is about the seasons, right? Sometimes balance means that you are going to put in a lot of hours into your business, and you're going to make that a priority when it needs to be made a priority, but you're also going to recognize the other priorities in your life and go, you know what? Think of it this way. This is what my wife and I do. We have it's kind of this circle looking thing, and we've got, what is it? 8 areas, I think, Kylene, help me if I'm wrong. I don't have it in front of me here, but we've got 8 areas that we feel are kind of our balanced life. We've got our work, our careers. We've got community. We've got our health. We've got our growth and learning. We've got our family and each other as spouses and partners, right? And our goal is to rate those each month. And our goal is to make each of those things a 10, right? What will it take to get those to a 10? And that's balance, right? I might need to really be focused on, like right now, my area that I'm out of balance in is my physical health. And so I need to find a way to balance that out, right? I get so passionate about what I'm doing that I get stuck sitting in my office chair working and doing the things that I want to do. And I forget I got to get up, right? And so I'm starting to implement strategies where I start doing that. And that's what balance really is. That balance is getting outside of, siloing everything down and going, is my whole life in balance? Am I loving what I'm doing? And if not, what changes do I need to make? And I'm not saying you're going to have to go cold turkey, right? Oh, I just need to cut this out or whatever. I need to stop doing this, right? It's I need to start implementing strategies to get there, right? Don't, what is the saying? Don't cut off your nose to spite your face, right? We need to start implementing strategies. Okay, I'm not spending enough time with my family. So I need to look ahead and go, okay, how can I start to implement that? Because if you all of a sudden go from I'm working all the time and now all of a sudden I'm taking days off and totally focused over here, guess what's going to happen? Your business is now going to fall out from under you because you're not spending as much time in it anymore. And now it's going to go down and your family life's going to go up. And then you're going to go, oh, shoot, I got to drop that ball and run back over here and get the business going back again. Oh, that my family ball fell. Okay. And that's not a balance, right? That's just juggling. We don't want to juggle. We want to have balance. And that balance means I just got to keep it going. I need to make small, slight changes that I can sustain. And that way, so now I start doing a little bit less in my business, a little bit more for my family. And then I get back to balance. I get back to level here, right? And I bring one up and they kind of level back out. And then ultimately I'm pushing them all to 10, right? And so that's what balance is. And that's what maintaining a healthy work-life balance is all about, is we have to start implementing strategies to establish some boundaries, right? Maybe you've got some challenges in your family life and you just need to be able to go, you know what? I need to establish a few boundaries. I'm not going to go just cut it off, but I'm going to say, you know what? Let's have a conversation. Can we go get a coffee and talk about this honestly? And let's not be defensive. I want you to tell me your real feelings. I'm going to tell you my real feelings, and let's just leave the defensiveness away and say, hey, I love you. You love me. How can we figure this out? Right. And just making those adjustments, right? Making an adjustment in the way that you show up for yourself is going to help too. Right. So, that's it. Okay. So the last one that I've got for you guys here, and then we'll kind of recap a little bit, but, is to seek support. Right. And this falls a little bit with like the delegate, but here's the reality. And I know this to be true, and I've seen it and I use it and I understand it now. It took me a long time to get there, But success is a team sport, period. Even if you don't, like Vicky talked about, right? I don't have anyone to delegate to. It's just me. But guess what? There are people around you, right? I'll raise my hand. There are people around you that want you to be successful. 100% guarantee that. And all you have to do is ask, right? And then you got to figure it out, right? You got to be willing to take that responsibility, say, I need to make changes, and then let's do it, right? So we need to find some peers that we can get into a group with. You need to find some mentors. We need to, find a professional service to help us with our accounting. We need to, look to other people and start seeking that support out there. It's out there. You just have to be willing to ask for it, right? And again, what that ask looks like, maybe they'll say no. Maybe they'll be like, no, that doesn't work for me. You got to do this or that. And I can't afford that and yada, yada, yada. Okay, next. There is support out there. You just have to seek it out, right? So it's really important to have that support mechanism. Like Kylene said, the MOS community has been really powerful for her, right? If you go to oursuccessgroup.com/MOS, there's an opportunity. But whatever it is, right? You got to find that thing. And we can't stop in this, woe is me attitude. And I get it, right? So I'm not saying that that's not going to show up, that feeling's not going to be there. Like, oh, I just don't have the same resources on it. I don't have the same people around me, blah, 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 blah. I feel that a lot of times. It's like, wow, why does nobody show up for my small business Saturdays and people are showing up for these crazy other things out there? Okay. Right. Well, why does my kid watch YouTube and doesn't listen to me? But the reality is I know that there's a balance of that. Right. So that's okay. And it's okay to have that little bit of a woe is me moment. But the trick is how you get out of it, right? What you do to move out of that. Because if we keep having that woe is me moment, that's where the burnout really locks into us. But if we're here to say, you know what, I'm going to seek support, I'm going to ask for help, I'm going to do something different, then guess what? Things will start to change, and they're going to change dramatically slowly, right? So you thought I was going to say dramatically quickly. It's going to feel like that after things start to happen. If you are not focused on the result, if you're just focused on the process and how I can implement small things to improve, you will look back and go, oh my gosh, that was amazing how quickly things changed. But in the moment, things are going to change really slowly, right? You just have to make little incremental changes. I call them marginal gains. And that takes intentional action, right? So, all right, let me just hit these real quick. We'll start back at the beginning, just so we've got a list. I want to get back to Vicky's comment from earlier, and talk about some ways that we can kind of make those decisions, and then close this out with any comments, questions, thoughts that you all have. So, number one is we're going to pause and organize. Thank you, Kylene. Number two, we're going to clear the decks, right? Maybe getting organized feels a little bit overwhelming. Clear the deck. Let's get rid of all the non-essential tasks and pick back up the ones that are essential, that are going to get us closer to our goal. Number three, reprioritize. We don't have a time management problem. We have a priority management problem. So sometimes we got to go, what am I really focused on? Number four, I think I'm doing the numbers right. Yeah. Physical care physically. Make sure that we're focusing, giving ourselves some self-care, whatever that looks like, the yoga with riseshinesmile.com, whatever that looks like for you. The next one here, reroute your productive passion. Find your why. What's your reason? Why is your reason bigger for your excuses of giving up, right? What is that reason? And why are you doing this? And again, the problem for a lot of us, and I know for me for a long time, the problem was I didn't have enough depth. Right, I was just all surface level. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be successful. This is going to sound really rough. Who cares, right? Nobody does really care, I don't believe, about the money and the success. That might be a measuring stick, right? But it's your strengths. You want to give your strengths out to the world. And so we have to get some depth into what that is. All right, next one, we got to delegate. All right, what can we get off of our plate? If we're feeling overwhelmed because there's too much, we got to get some stuff off of our plate. And regardless of what you think about your ability to delegate, you have the ability to delegate. You just have to do it. All right. And next, maintain a healthy work-life balance, and important what that balance really is, right? It's not equal parts this, and this. That makes balance, right? What makes balance is that you're continually keeping things heading in the right direction with small incremental changes. And then lastly, but not least, in fact, this is probably most important, is seek support, right? Here's the deal. To seek support, you actually have to do something, though. You have to take action, right? If I said I raised my hand here, so the podcast listeners, I physically raised my hand and said, reach out to me, seek support. I have this tool over here. You can see it right below me if you're watching the video, but the podcast listeners, it's consultaaron.com. It is a direct link to me. You're going to be able to send a video message, an audio message, or even a text message if you so are inclined, directly to me anytime, no charge. Seek help, right? But you can't seek help by just sitting there going, oh, I'm going to consume this video and hope that things change. Nope. You've got to raise your hand too, right? Help and support comes with two people meeting together to improve each other's outcomes. So, all right, seek support. All right, so let me get back here to Vicky's comment. I'm just going to put that on screen. Going through burnout right now. It's making me question what I'm doing. Should I not be doing vendor shows anymore? The economy is sucking the life out of me, right? Okay, Vicky. So first and foremost, let me just make sure, and it's never good when people clarify things first, but I fully support you. I fully understand what you're going through. I think one of your big challenges is going to be that last line. The economy is sucking the life out of me. Because once you make that statement right there, you've now handed your power to the economy. So you can't control it anymore. The economy has to be good. Otherwise, you're not going to have any life, right? And again, I know that that's just the statement that you're sharing. And so I'm not picking on you at all. I just want to kind of show you, if we change this a little bit and go, economy's challenging, but I know the economy could be an opportunity, right? If you look at some of the biggest, strongest companies in the United States today, most of them started during the Great Depression, right? The big Fortune 500 companies that are American-based started in the Great Depression. So what does that tell you, right? There is opportunity in a down economy. Now, does that mean that I want it to be a down economy? Absolutely not. Things are certainly much easier when the economy's better. And I get it, right? I filled up my gas tank. I know how much things are costing me. You know, we're trying to go out to eat less because it's so crazy expensive. The economy's a challenge. So we have to start getting creative. And so I kind of want to go from backwards to forward. So we covered that. So take your power back and go, okay, the economy sucks. What can I do about it, right? How can I affect that, right? Can I save some money somewhere? Can I get closer to my customers and see how we can work together a little bit better? You got to do something different. Then should I not be doing vendor shows anymore? And this is where that reason becomes so important, right? I don't know the answer to that, right? Only you know the answer. In fact, nobody else but you knows the answer to that. I can help guide you and give you some tools and have some kind of counterintuitive thoughts to what you're saying. And so maybe reach out to me at consultaaron.com and just go through with me the details of why you're kind of questioning, should you be doing the vendor shows anymore, right? The return on investment, but why are you doing the vendor shows to begin with, right? Do you love getting in front of the people? What could you do differently? Maybe there's different vendor shows, right? So there's a lot of different things that we could do there, but you got to go a little bit deeper. And this is going to seem really out there, and so take it for what it's worth. I for a long time thought all this stuff was really out there. Here's what I would do. I would go, should I be doing the vendor shows anymore? I would stand up, get a nice solid base so I feel really firm. And then I would close my eyes and I'd ask myself, show me a positive and show me a negative. So I close my eyes, show me a positive. For most people, you're going to feel yourself lean forward. Not everybody. Some people will feel themselves lean to a side or something like that, depending on how your body's all made. Again, I know this seems out there. Absolutely works 100%. So I close your eyes. Should I do the vendor shows? Right. So you first, you show yourself what a positive and what a negative is. And then again, just from you got to try to clear the space. You can't have a whole lot going on around you. So right now it wouldn't work for me because I'm focused on what I'm doing here. So I need to kind of give myself a little moment to just think about it, visualize what doing the vendor shows really is and all that stuff. And then I just close my eyes and I go, should I do it? And whichever way I lean, That's what your gut's telling you. That's what your instinct's telling you. That's what your subconscious is telling you. And I know for a fact that 9 times out of 10, if we listen to our instinct, it's going to lead us down the correct path. It's that 10th time that scares the hell out of us. But here's what I've realized in this moment of hindsight is that 10th time, when you listen to your gut and it doesn't seem to work out, it was actually an opportunity for you to grow, and it was actually leading you to something better than you were thinking about. Right. So actually 10 times out of 10, your gut is right. Sometimes we just have to go through some challenges to get there. Right. So there's another technique right there. Right. And question what you're doing. To be honest with you, I think you got to congratulate yourself in that moment right there. It makes me question what I'm doing. Give yourself a round of applause for that. Right. To stop and question yourself is huge. It's an amazing thing. It feels bad. I'm not trusting myself right now. Well, okay. Well, then we better figure out why, right? There's an opportunity to learn and grow. So hopefully a couple of those things helped a little bit, Vicki. Certainly not trying to, again, pick on you. I'm support. Hand is up. Reach out to me. Please let me know where I can and support you any way that I can, and go from there. So, all right. Anybody else got anything? Hopefully that was useful for you there today. We talked about combating burnout. Let me see what else we got here. Yep, I think I got all my notes covered. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We appreciate you spending some time with us here on Saturday. Next week, I've got Liz Shell, a good friend of our family, actually, but a good friend of mine that somebody I really look up to. She's been pretty amazing person, and she is a wonderful consultant, and she's going to talk to us about adaptability next week. So tune in for that. It is going to be a little bit earlier next Saturday because as a family, we've got to get on the road. We're taking a trip next week, and so we've got to get on the road earlier in the day. So it's going to be 8 o'clock Central Time next Saturday, but we are back here, so I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent. I am going to try to use the noon slot for most of the time because I think that kind of gives us a break in the middle of a Saturday, but there will be times like when we've got to travel that it might be a little earlier in the day. But so next week, 8 a.m. Central Time, we're going to talk about adaptability and how to utilize that to grow ourselves and our business. And so I'm excited to be back for Small Business Saturdays here. So that's what I have for you guys today. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I will see everybody again next week.